Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're tackling a question that pops up all the time, usually with a good dose of Hollywood-style panic. When is Yellowstone going to blow? You've probably seen the disaster movies, the sensational headlines. A supervolcano erupts, plunges the world into a volcanic winter, and basically ends civilization as we know it. It sounds terrifying, right? But what's the real science behind the hype? Is this something we actually need to worry about in our lifetime? Let's get into it and separate the facts from the fiction. First off, what even is the Yellowstone supervolcano? It's not your classic pointy mountain volcano like Mount Fuji. Instead, it's what geologists call a caldera. Imagine a massive underground chamber of magma. When it erupts with incredible force, the ground above it collapses, leaving a giant, crater-like depression. The Yellowstone caldera is huge, about 45 miles long and 30 miles wide, covering a huge chunk of Yellowstone National Park. This beast has had 3 massive caldera-forming eruptions in its history, one about 2.1 million years ago, another 1.3 million years ago, and the most recent one about 631,000 years ago. Now let's do some simple math. If you look at the time between those eruptions, you get a rough average of about 700,000 to 800,000 years. Since the last big one was 631,000 years ago, some people look at that number and think, oh no, we're overdue. This is probably the biggest misconception about Yellowstone. Volcanoes aren't like trains. They don't run on a strict schedule. That average is just an average. It doesn't mean an eruption is guaranteed to happen once we hit a certain number. It's like flipping a coin. Just because you got heads 3 times in a row doesn't mean the next flip is guaranteed to be tails. The volcano erupts when the conditions beneath the ground are right, not because a geologic alarm clock goes off. So what are the chances of another super eruption? What's actually more common at Yellowstone are smaller events. Since the last super eruption, there have been about 80 relatively non-explosive lava flows. The most recent one was about 70,000 years ago. These lava flows are slow-moving and mostly stay within the park boundaries. While they would definitely disrupt the park, they aren't a threat to the continent or the planet. The other common type of event is a hydrothermal explosion. This happens when superheated water trapped underground flashes into steam, causing a powerful but localized explosion. These can create craters a few hundred feet across. They happen every few years and are a bigger hazard to anyone standing nearby than a super eruption is to the world. This brings us to the most important point. How do we know what's happening? Scientists aren't just guessing. Yellowstone is one of the most heavily monitored volcanic areas on the planet. The Yellowstone Volcano Observatory uses a massive network of instruments to keep a constant watch. They have seismometers to detect ground shaking from earthquakes or moving magma. They use GPS stations that can measure the ground rising or falling by fractions of an inch, which can indicate that the magma chamber below is swelling or shrinking. They also monitor gas emissions like carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide, and changes in the temperature of the hot springs and geysers. It's like having the volcano hooked up to a hospital-grade heart monitor. So, what are the monitors telling us right now? Well, Yellowstone is a very active, living system. The ground is always moving a little. There are thousands of small earthquakes every year. The ground rises and falls. This is all normal behavior for a caldera. It's the volcano breathing. For a super eruption to even be possible, scientists would need to see drastic changes far beyond this normal background activity. We're talking about intense earthquake swarms with quakes getting stronger and shallower. We'd see the ground deforming rapidly, rising by feet, not inches, over a short period. We would see huge changes in gas emissions and temperatures across the park. These signs would be undeniable and would likely start weeks, months, or even years before any major eruption. There would be plenty of warning. This isn't something that would just happen out of the blue one Tuesday afternoon. Let's imagine for a moment that the impossible happens and the warning signs for a super eruption start appearing. What would that actually look like? First, there would be a massive evacuation of the entire region. Then the eruption itself would send a colossal column of ash, rock, and gas tens of miles into the atmosphere. This ash would fall across the United States, with the thickest layers blanketing states like Wyoming, Montana, and Colorado. It would be like a thick, gritty, permanent winter. It would collapse roofs, contaminate water supplies, ruin farmland, and grind modern machinery, including cars and power plants, to a halt. Globally, the gases and fine ash particles thrown into the stratosphere would block sunlight, causing global temperatures to drop by several degrees. This volcanic winter could last for years, severely disrupting agriculture and ecosystems worldwide. It would be a global catastrophe, no doubt about it. But again, and I can't stress this enough, this is the absolute worst-case, least likely scenario. It's the geologic equivalent of a planet-killing asteroid strike. Possible in theory, but extremely improbable in practice. So, to wrap it all up, is Yellowstone a fascinating, powerful, and active geological wonder? Absolutely. Should you be scared of it? No. The chances of a supereruption happening in our lifetime, or our children's lifetime, or even our great-great-great-grandchildren's lifetime are astronomically low. The far more likely activity at Yellowstone will be the beautiful geysers, the fascinating hot springs, and the occasional small earthquake or lava flow that scientists are watching like hawks. The sensationalism makes for a great movie plot, but the reality is much less alarming and way more scientifically interesting. So, you can sleep soundly tonight. Yellowstone isn't blowing anytime soon. Thanks so much for watching and for wanting to understand the science behind the headlines. If you found this helpful or interesting, do me a favor and hit that like button, and definitely subscribe for more deep dives into the world around us. Let me know in the comments if there are any other big questions you want me to tackle. See you in the next video.